Welcome everyone to a discussion today about creating a love of learning and resilience in our classroom, really focusing on growth mindset. This conversation today is brought to you by DreamBox. My name is Tasha Woods and I am a team member at DreamBox. I am excited and thrilled to have this conversation with three educators from across the country. I'm just going to mention your names. If you guys could wave so everyone know who you are, that'd be great. Christopher Baldini is a middle school social studies teacher and an after-school educator with the Archdiocese of New York. Jessica Cheney is a kindergarten teacher from Round Rock ISD, Texas. And Shannon Hallett is a second grade teacher from the Leander School District in Texas. Thank you for joining us. I know you guys are busy.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
I am excited.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And also, if for those who are in our webinar, we have DreamBox members on the chat box. So please, if you are listening, join in on the conversation. Leave those questions or those comments. If something resonated with you, we want to know. If you want us to follow up with something, let us know. Thank you for the team that is manning that chat box, because if I mess up something or forget something, I know that you'll pop that in there for me. Thank you. All right, when I was getting ready for this webinar, I was looking at growth mindset and reflecting on when I had first heard about it. I'm gonna be very honest about my age. I'm 45 years old. So this growth mindset really popped up in the middle of my teaching career. It was a shift, right? It was a new term. And I was surprised by this. Growth mindset really came from the work of Carol Dweck, a Stanford professor. She published her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And this is what surprised me. Can you believe it? It was 15 years ago. 15 years ago in education, with the pendulum that swings left and right, and we are still exploring and talking about it and still making a major impact in our classrooms with our learners. And that really surprised me, 15 years. I'm excited to learn about your journey and where you're at with your classroom and your learners. But I have to admit, when I first heard growth mindset as an educator, my first thought was, this is just a nice term. This is just one more of those terms that's going to come along, and we're supposed to say something nice to our learners, but it didn't have depth. And really, that's what struck me as I am on this journey to bring this into my classroom, bring this into my learners' lives, is that growth mindset's more than that. It's really grounded in science, that when we allow our learners to struggle and persevere, when they're given that opportunity, connections are made in the brain. It is actually changing at that brain level. That was a big shift. It was a big shift in how I learned as a young child and how I saw my learners in my classroom. But it's a tough shift. And I think it's one that we're still seeing across the spectrum in our American classrooms and in our practice. So I'm excited to hear how that's going in your classrooms and what you're seeing, what you're feeling. So here is our agenda for today. Sorry, I should have had these up when I was introducing you. I apologize, panelists. Here's our agenda. We're going to start with growth mindset. What does that look like in your classroom? That perseverance, the power of yet, and making mistakes. All right, so we're going to try to break up our conversation into 3 different sections. So starting with that growth mindset, I already shared that it was tough for me as an educator as to what fixed mindset was versus growth mindset. And Chris, we'll throw this one to you as our middle school teacher. When you are bringing this up in your classroom, do you talk to your students specifically about fixed mindset versus growth mindset? What does that look like?
Not directly. I would do it indirectly. So just in general, same with you. This is my 6th year in education, and as we all know, even for us teachers, that idea of growth mindset is occurring immediately. Every year, we seem to hopefully be getting better as teachers and educators with our students. So we are setting the example for them, first of all. And for me personally, I always try to explain that to them, that it doesn't matter how old you are and what level you're at, what grade level, you're going to continue to make mistakes, and it's the knowledge of that. So talking about a fixed mindset, I definitely have many students who have this mentality maybe early on, especially when you acquire new students and you try to acclimate them into a new atmosphere and to bring this new approach of a positive approach, like I said, of growth mindset. But it definitely is really all about, for me personally, it's just giving that positive reinforcement and encouraging the students to do better. I know this is going to be a long journey with them, so to continue to like relate back to them, to not, be discouraged. It's going to be frustrating, but to always know that there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, and you're going to realize that you're going to be able to do things that you never thought you could do. The expectations that you had in the beginning, you might even surpass significantly.
Oh, I like that. Jessica, would you like to add on to that?
Sure. So I can say as a kindergarten teacher, sometimes I feel like my job is a lot easier in regards to growth mindset, but then sometimes I feel like it's a little harder because when they are this young, they have just a wonder about the world, and they are so excited to explore and to try new things. And so while they may need some prompting and some self-talk with taking risks, when they're little, especially if you've built that bond and that connection, they want to try new things for you. And then on the other side of that, in kindergarten, a lot of our 5-year-olds believe that whole world revolves strictly around them. And so my journey is just a little bit different because I get to be part of the wonder and the excitement, but then I also have to show them that there's so much about the world we don't know yet. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that I get to do in kindergarten. And I would agree. It's something that I only heard about, I would say 4 or 5 years ago. And so I feel like every year I'm learning more and better ways that I can introduce this and model it and show it in my classroom. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep these conversations going.
Oh, that is very interesting. And it's nice to point out too, that there is that difference between kindergartners when they start coming in versus those middle schoolers, right? Who've been going through these classrooms for a while, but still incorporating this growth mindset still here, this excitement can still be here. Shannon, as a second grade teacher, what are your thoughts?
So I first was introduced to the term growth mindset through a video that I watched with Jo Bowler. And she talked about 4 key messages for kids when she specifically talks about math learning, but any kind of learning, and talking about believing in yourself. She talks about how when you're struggling and making mistakes, that's when the learning is really happening, which is such a foreign concept to so many kids. They just think that it's a race, and if I don't know it fast enough and I am not, getting it as quickly as everyone else, that I must not be good at it. And so I actually show that video that inspired me with learning about growth mindset to my kids every year at the beginning of the year. And it talks a little bit about the brain and how the synapses start firing when there's struggle going on. And the kids are fascinated by it. And maybe it's because I get so excited about, the science of it all. And I'm kind of a science geek that way, but they get excited about it. And they love to know that every time that they're struggling with something and learning something, that they're growing their brain and that it's making a difference in what they're learning and how they're doing. And so we focus a lot on those key concepts all year long. I'm talking about it every day, every time they struggle with something, or even when they struggle and they figure it out and they're super excited. And so it's a constant conversation. It's not just something I introduce at the beginning of the year. It just lasts throughout the year. And I'm able to, keep pushing them. And for those kids that are very good and quick at things, when they get to that point of struggling, it's foreign to them because they're so used to getting it all right. And so giving them, trying to find ways to give them challenge to really make them struggle can be difficult for them. And so we work through all of that. So it's very exciting. My kids love it, and they love the hope that it brings for them, that it's going to be okay. And it's okay that it's not easy right away.
Oh, I think that's so important. It's not easy right away. And eventually we're all going to get there with something. And Shannon, you brought up Jo Bowler and math specifically. I think Jill Bowler's resources are incredible, and her work that she's building on, also a Stanford professor. Math certainly was one of the first subjects in my classroom where growth mindset really came into play, because growing up, it was a race, right? Fourth grade math was a race. It was all about around the room was the fun, around the world was the fun game to play, which no, I don't think that was ever fun to play in fourth grade. But it was felt like of all the subjects that math was right or wrong, right? There wasn't an in between. And even when I went to university, math was not my favorite subject, and the professors were sort of like, just show your work. And at first, like, oh, I can get partial credit. And now when I reflect back on that, I feel like teachers or the professors were just like, let me find one thing that you're doing right, and I'll give you some credit, because your mistakes here, they're not worth any credit, right? Those aren't interesting at all. And with growth mindset and with math, instead of saying, you got something right, but the rest we're gonna do away with, that really it's saying, oh, how interesting you did that in math. Now, Christopher, you've shared that you are supporting math at your school as a social studies teacher. So how is that? How is it supporting those two subject areas with growth mindset and math? And what are you seeing there with junior high or middle school kids?
So for me personally, the way that our school is structured, it gives me the opportunity to incorporate math in two separate ways. First, the first thing that our students do when they come in is the homeroom teacher. You can provide them with math problems in the morning. So they'll come in, they'll settle in, and I'll assign them certain topics for us to work on in the morning. First thing, get everybody fresh, get those minds running. And it helped for me personally. I stick with the curriculum, which the modules that they might be for our state standards for the time, so that I can be an additional resource for outside their just regular math class. Because I know many of us, you hear from one person, it might not click. You hear from another, maybe chances keep on going. That power of mind, just keeping that positive mindset. When it comes to the social studies classes, I definitely try to incorporate math as much as possible. I personally do enjoy fifth grade math. It really does remind me of that TV show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? It really is challenging for these guys. It really is a big step up from what they were doing. It's all these new concepts for them. So you just definitely want to encourage them in those the mistakes that they're going to make, and that it's expected. You learned your multiplication tables. Now you're going to learn how to apply them into different areas. But in the classroom, whether it's timelines with years and trying to calculate how long a period might be, just every now and then, just trying to do that. But like you're saying, there's that fine line between trying to ask some example questions like that and seeing like who's going to answer first. So it's a really tough way of navigating to make sure that you're incorporating everybody, and that everybody has that chance to at least try. Whether they get it right or wrong is a different story, but that's the whole entire point. It doesn't matter if you got it right or wrong. It's just about the trying.
And I feel like that might be tougher in middle school, because the kids are always looking to define themselves. Well, am I in the right crowd? Am I in the wrong crowd? Like, where am I in that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think for me personally, what I've seen as a breaking point is that borderline of sixth going into seventh grade. For me, I guess that's like around 12 or 13. So exactly when you start becoming a teenager, you start to see some students that are really, have positive attitudes, are really conscientious about the work. And then all of a sudden, like you're saying, there might be some distractions. They might see that cliques are forming even more than they thought before. And so it kind of throws them off their game, and they lose their focus in the classroom. So it's really important for us as educators to try to foster, environments that are, trying to stay as positive as possible. Now we only have as much control as we do, but we're going to do our best to make sure that we're staying away from that and incorporating everybody and mixing it up, throwing in different groups when we can.
Yeah, no, for a kindergarten second grade teacher, right? It feels very different when you walk into a kindergarten room versus a sixth grade room or a seventh grade room. What are some of those struggles when you're trying to support those kids with, it's okay to make mistakes? I feel like it's lovely to walk into a kindergarten room and everyone's hands are up and it's just joy everywhere. But what are those struggles that you see as a teacher for kindergarten and second? Jessica.
So definitely in kindergarten, it takes a little bit because I can say when they first walk in, especially if they haven't been in school prior, you really have to get them to trust you. And so it's very much me at the beginning, modeling, making mistakes. And 5-year-olds are surprisingly kind when I make mistakes. And so I make mistakes in front of them with writing my name, or one of the things I like to do at the beginning of the year is when I'm drawing something, I'll make a square head on a person. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh, that's okay. This is what my eraser's for. So I do a lot of modeling that at the beginning so they can see I make mistakes and that's okay. And I'm very careful with the texts that I like to read to the kids at the beginning of the year. We have what's called a brain growers chart. And so we read lots of wonderful books that talk about making mistakes and talk about perseverance and talk about being flexible. And we keep that up all year long. So we've got the book title or the book cover, and then we draw pictures of ourselves doing those things. Because I want them to see that, yes, this is in a book, but it's in our lives too. And so it's a lot of modeling, it's a lot of self-talk. And then one of the things I can say that's important and I feel primary is the power of the wait time, because I never want a child to feel like I am rushing them to tell me an answer. So I am really good at sitting and just waiting and smiling. And I don't ever get up and say, keep thinking. I sit and I wait and I listen. And I think there's power to that too. So it is different than middle school, but there is still some very specific planning that has to go into it.
I like that strategy, that power of that wait time, right? There's times, right, as a mom and just as a human, I need to remember that. Even when you pause there, I was like, wait, I have to fix that. Important lesson. Shannon, what about second grade?
The wait time is a huge thing. I think that sometimes these kiddos come in and they already come in with thoughts about how they are as a learner. And so I find that we do a lot of role play at the beginning and talking through like what would be a good way to approach this situation. And talking, they don't always come with ways to get past those issues that they have with how they think about themselves as a learner, be it good or bad. Like I'm smart and I can do everything. And well, we have to get past that too, because we want the learning to take place. And if everything is too easy, then that's not going to be learning either. And so we do a lot with just talking through, well, what do I say when I just, I can't figure out something on an assignment, or I just feel like I'm not any good at math. And so having those conversations, having them as a class come up with ways that, they could deal with it. And in those conversations, different kids are hearing from other kids how they have dealt with it before, or if they've never dealt with it, they're getting ideas from others. So I feel like that's a really powerful thing that we do and we keep doing throughout the year, because just saying it once isn't gonna, as for the littles, they're not gonna remember. And so it's a constant conversation. And the other thing I think is being really intentional about what I say to kids and how I say it. Understanding that all of this is learning to them, that just because they're making a mistake, or maybe they said something they didn't mean, or they want to give up, that it's all a learning process. And, it can be frustrating sometimes, but just being really intentional about not showing that frustration, because they want to know that you accept them for what they're doing, and they need that positive feedback from you, that this is okay, this is learning, this is how it goes, and that we're not mad because you're learning. We're not going to be, upset with you because you don't know how to do something, that it's just a process.
Oh, that was lovely. We're not going to be mad. It's a process. What I heard all of you bring in for growth, how you're supporting this in your classroom is what Chris was sharing, expectation. It's expected that you're going to struggle with some of this stuff. This is what you're here for. And Jessica, I really took away from when you were saying those pauses, make space and just sit there and let them do that. Let them have that space to make that. And Shannon, the importance of that relationship of whoever is facilitating or guiding that learning of it's okay, right? And then I love how you let students help model different ways to be learners for them to come up with those strategies. If you could give an educator one thing to try, right? That one thing to change next year, when at the beginning of the year, when we come back to class and there's all those new things that we have to put on and they're all on our plate. If an educator was going to start adopting growth mindset and bring it into their classroom, what is one thing that you could suggest to them to take? What's that baby step that they could take? Shannon, do you mind going first?
Sure. I have done a huge mind shift in, like I said, being more intentional about what I say to kids and the lens that I look at what they're doing through. And I think the biggest takeaway that I've gotten lately is just looking at everything that they do as a learning opportunity. And that it's not I'm, like that I'm mad or I'm upset or anything, taking the emotion out of it and just looking at it as a learning opportunity. And I think it gives kids that empowerment to say, okay, I made a mistake and it is going to be okay. And I'm feeling that from my teacher because of the way her face looks, the tone of voice that I'm using, and being very intentional about looking at, okay, why did they do that? Here's an opportunity to learn that in this situation, it might be better to do this. Or when you come to a problem that you're frustrated with, it might be good to try these strategies. Especially, the younger they are, they need as many opportunities as possible to know that you love them, that you care about them, and that you care about how they learn and that it's okay. And so that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from this whole process.
Chris, how about you? What is a tip that you could give an educator just starting?
I know this kind of coincides with the idea of growth mindset. That's the point of the power of yet. I'm sorry if I'm stepping on toes here, but when we're thinking about that concept of like trying to learn from our mistakes, one simple thing that I can recommend is I actually show every year, regardless of how my students I get every year. So if you were in 5th grade, I'll still see you all the way through 8th grade. So I have a lot of students that repeat as they move on through the years. And every year I'd like to start regardless with a particular YouTube video. I know it sounds really out of context for a middle schooler, but they do have some connection to it. I know it's definitely not age appropriate, but Sesame Street, the power of yet. I get a lot of good laughs from the kids. It's a nice icebreaker. And every year I ask them, just to analyze what did I just make you watch? Like as if you were in, like Jessica's dealing with kindergartners, they're looking and scratching their heads, especially the new students. I love it every single time I do that. But just to introduce the idea that remember that this year is going to be a struggle. You're going to have new challenges. And from that video, you're going to see like it's just basic things, whether it's, inside the classroom in your mathematics class or outside the classroom in your hobbies. You're going to want to have to accept that you're going to fail in order to eventually see that end game, that you're going to do it. And like I said before, you might even do better than what you thought you did to start off with it. And one other thing I like to tease people as I go throughout the year, when I start to see those students struggling, I might be teasing them a bit when I do this, but I like to sing the song. I'm not the best singer in the world, but I definitely like to sing the song every now and then to kind of remind them that, when you're struggling, it's okay.
Oh my goodness, that's great. We're gonna have to get that link from you. So far, we've heard 2 videos. We're gonna get those and send those out as follow-up resources. I love that. Jessica, what would you suggest for an educator just starting off?
So I think one of the smallest, but one of the most powerful ways that teachers can incorporate this into their rooms is just by being mindful of the language we use in regards to compliments, in regards to the way we address kids. I know I'm so lucky that I work on a wonderful team of teachers, but we're really, really intentional with saying, okay, writers, come to the floor. Okay, kindergarten readers, come with me to the floor. Mathematicians, look up here. Well, instilling in them that just simple Oh, absolutely, I'm a writer. Absolutely, I'm a mathematician. It gives them power with just that simple way to address them. So it's something small, but I do feel like there's power in the way that they hear us talk about them. And it's little. You don't have to read lots of books. It's just something little, but I do feel like there's power in letting them hear. Absolutely, you're a reader and a writer. So, and a mathematician.
Yes, I agree with you. There's power in those words. There's power in that identity. And how powerful for a kindergartner to hear that right when they're starting off their academic careers, how powerful. So now we've talked a lot about making space, sort of from the educator side, what you've had to be intentional about in making those growth mindset, those steps that you've taken. Your learners now have a safe spot to be in. What happens when they have to draw on that perseverance, right? When all of a sudden that dreaded word comes in, like now it's really tough and we've got to put our nose to the grindstone. How do you invite perseverance into your learning space? How do you invite learners or students to practice and hone that grit, that tenacity that it takes to get through something that you're like, I'm never going to get fractions. Multiplying fractions, like this is not ever going to click. How do you help them? Jessica, we'll start with you for this section. I shouldn't have chosen fractions for the kindergarten teacher. Jessica, how do you help your kids with perseverance?
Yes. So in kindergarten, typically when something gets too hard, we cry. And so one of the things that I do automatically do though is I listen. I let them know I see that this is upsetting you, but I always go back to, but we can't stop here. We can't stop here. So there are tears, but again, that's kind of why we really rely a lot on our brain goers charts so that we can go directly to someone who has been through this before. And then we can go and see, this is the journey they went on and this is how that story ended. And so by giving them a connection to something that they're familiar with, it allows them to feel, hey, okay, this has happened to someone besides me. And it's going to be okay. And so I make sure that I listen, but then I always provide them with something that, oh, this is what happened to me one time. Sometimes those stories work, but when they are able to fall in love with a character who's gone through something similar, it just kind of anchors them in, okay, I'm going to be okay. And I love that Shannon said, it's going to take repetition. It's not something that happens right away. And I have to always continue to model patience because those might be conversations we have a lot, and that's okay. So that's what we like to do.
Jessica, you've mentioned that brain growers chart a couple of times. Is there a possibility that you could send us an example or something that we can reference to that we can also include in our resources to send out? All right, thank you. Shannon, how do you invite perseverance into your classroom with your learners?
So I definitely show them a lot of empathy that I understand. I might not understand their situation. I try to stay away from I understand, but letting them know that I hear you and that must be hard, and validating how they feel, how they're feeling at that time. And I also share a lot of stories. Probably the most shocking story that I share with my kids that they just gasp at is when I was student teaching and I was really struggling with student teaching, and there were a lot of factors involved in it, but I had always wanted to be a teacher. And when I was struggling with student teaching, and my the people who I would talk with, like my mentor teacher or the person at my university, suggested that maybe I needed to find a different career choice. And that was devastating. And my kids all go, oh, what? But you're the best teacher ever. That's the second grade term. Best teacher ever. I love it. But like, they're completely shocked. And so I talked to them a lot about, it was really frustrating. I was really upset. It was very hard for me to hear those things. And then we talk a lot about I had to start thinking about what should I do differently? And that reflection piece, like, what could I do? What else could I change? And telling them about that and really connecting with them with my own experiences, I feel like gives them this kind of relief, like, oh my gosh, okay. So she's also gone through some tough stuff, like if I had just listened to those people that said, well, maybe teaching isn't the right thing for you, then I wouldn't even be here teaching you, you know? And so that is a huge deal to them. That's, but yeah, just sharing stories, because I think they think that this teacher in front of me is perfect and can do no wrong, and they wouldn't understand. And so really being open with them, and I share with them a lot of different stories of mistakes that I've made that I really regret, and it just makes them feel better about what they're doing, or helps them to just really see, okay, I can get through this. If Miss Hallett can get through it when they told her that she probably shouldn't teach, and she's a teacher now, I can do this.
What a model. Yeah, absolutely. Chris, what about those middle schoolers?
Oh, you know, it's all different struggles regardless of the age level. Definitely in a little bit different way for the middle schoolers. But for perseverance and try to encourage them, um, they don't usually pick up on it until, especially like the 5th and 6th graders in particular. What I try to do to encourage that is in twofold. When it comes to my involvement with math, when we start a particular unit, I'll give them a set of problems, and then I'll reuse that same set of problems a week later, 2 weeks later. And what I try to do, and I do the same thing in social studies, whether we're working on a project, I'll give them a goal and I'll give them different parts of continuously building upon it. But in the aspect of mathematics, of without them even realizing it, because a week goes by, if I can probably give some of these students the same set of questions 2 days prior, and they'll say, I guess this is math, I'll just do it again. But just to stop every once in a while to see their growth. So what I'll try to do, I try to schedule it at least twice a week, where I, on Fridays, will meet individually with students. And even in a COVID world, thank goodness for, breakout rooms and waiting room, to just take 5 minutes. That's all it is with each student, kind of go through it and just kind of take that one-on-one time. Or if you want to do it together as a class, you have those options to just say, look what you did as a mistake on this first time around. Look what you did the second time. As the students are seeing their work and they're getting to see that progress, they're seeing that there's hope, that they can do this, and to not give up, because they have made strides, whether it's a couple steps or a big giant leap. It's still progress, and not to give up. You're almost there.
It's still progress. I think that's really important. So now if we could drill down, we're getting lots of questions in the chat box, lots of great resources. People are jumping in there. And we're having a specific question about, think about a math situation, right? When you've been working with math and you have that student who just can't, or is having trouble pulling out that ability to show that grit, that tenacity, that belief that they can go on. They're not even able to move. There's not even a verb in there for them to grab onto. Is there a strategy that you have utilized that another teacher could utilize to help a student persevere, right? I think when I first started teaching, it was 3 before me. I'd always say that as if that was some sort of ability to support a student. And they're like, and all they were doing is asking the same question. Can you give me the answer? Can you give me the answer? Right? They weren't trying to struggle or see the beauty in the problem solving. They just want the answer. Do you have a strategy that you utilize, and it's specifically about math, it's been popped up there a couple of times, to help students struggle through that math question, to struggle through that concept? I think the last person I started with, I've lost track. Shannon, are you okay taking that question?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to make things as concrete as possible. So when you're coming to some very abstract concepts, breaking it down, using manipulatives, I talk to the kids a lot about, well, let's try it this way. If this way didn't work, let's try it this way. So kind of thinking through some of the different models you can use, or the different ways that problems can be solved ahead of time, often helps me have something to pull. I have something over here that I can pull from, something over here I can pull from, or a hundreds chart that I can pull just right away, so that I always have other options that they can use. Like today, one of my students was doing just a learning check. And she said, okay, I'm trying to think about this number 418, and I know I need to add 10. And she's like, okay, I think I know how to do it, but I'm really struggling with this number 18 and how to show it in expanded form. And I was like, okay, well, let's grab some base 10 pieces. Here's some base 10 pieces, build it. Let's see what happens. And it was like, oh my gosh, I totally get it now, So having some things in your back pocket ahead of time that you're thinking about that you can just pull from, because every kid is going to learn differently, and every kid is going to connect with one thing or another in a different way. So that's what I try to do, is just have things on hand that I can help them with.
Well, that's interesting. And I don't know if panelists, if you're seeing the question in the chat box, it's been popped up there a couple of times, of how to get a student to move, to be intrinsically motivated. Sorry, my chat box just moved on me as I was reading that. And Shannon, if it's fair, and panelists, tell me if this is fair, it really sounds like you're not moving to motivate them to struggle. You're giving them a different opportunity to struggle. You're giving them a different interaction point. You're not waiting for motivation. You have a strategy as a teacher where you're going to intentionally support them with something else. I see.
And I think that's where the motivation comes from too, is if I can use a tool that is more familiar to me, or that helps me understand it more, I'm going to connect with that a lot more, and my motivation is going to go up. Because if I don't understand it in this way, but this makes more sense to me, that motivation just inherently goes up because it makes more sense. And that's their comfort, and that's what they're looking for, is a little bit more comfort when things don't feel very comfortable.
Chris, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, Jessica, go ahead, Jessica. I saw your finger go up. Go ahead. Yes.
I am so sorry. I interrupted and I did not mean to. I apologize. But I wanted to share one wonderful resource. We have two wonderful math minds in our district, Brian Stakis and Regina Payne, who have come up with this process of, it's called Numberless word problems. And it can be used for anyone. And it's just a wonderful way to make math real and to turn it into a story. So it's not so much they're focused on the math, it's so much I'm focused on, what do I understand in this story? And so it's kind of taking the math and just reframing it so it's a story, and then we can get to the math when we understand what the problem or what the story is asking us to do. And so I just wanted to throw that blurb out there. It's been a wonderful resource that we've been using, and I can say it's an engaging thing, and it just sometimes there's a mindset around math, like, oh, I don't like math, even when they're 5. And so this is just a wonderful way to make it living and to turn it into a story, and it just kind of reframes it in a different way for kids.
Chris.
Thank you. So I'm probably going to harp off of what Shannon said, because I couldn't agree more. The fact is that as educators, we know that there are certain students that only learn in certain ways. And we have a huge responsibility as educators to make sure that we can provide as many ways as possible for them to succeed. And that can be very tough, especially, it doesn't even matter anymore in the COVID world. You're still going to have decent sized classrooms, and you're going to have to provide all those resources. I know, for example, as we're going through fractions and we're going through tape diagrams, the introduction of just something as simple as being able to draw your fractions using the tape diagram just opened up the door to so many students that are more visual learners. As soon as they got a hold of the concept of it, they took off, rather than just saying, okay, this is how math works. Like you said earlier, Tasha, of like math, there's only one way to do this, and this is how you're going to get to this answer. If you get to the answer and you show your work, that's what we want. We want to find the way that works best for them. And obviously, like Shannon indicated as well, that motivation comes with the confidence. So once they find that direction, they feel a little bit more confident. The motivation is inherent. And I think that that's like the most important thing. And it can be very frustrating for us as educators as well as them when we're trying to find what's going to make them click. And so we're living it. We're living that growth mindset.
Modeling it every day, yeah. Right? Especially now, teachers are modeling that every single day when you have to shift everything that you've done daily. You're asked to, like, where are we today?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. We're getting a lot of specific questions about math in here, how to support that, how to intrinsically support that. What does it look like? And how to teach that perseverance. We are coming near the end. This conversation has been so rich, and I want to follow all of these trails, these wonderful resources you guys have talked about. When it comes to math instruction, I'm going to show a video. I'm going to share a video. And I have to be honest, this is a video of my son. He's a third grader. You're going to notice the background is exactly the same. I'm gonna have to pull on the power of yet on this one. I have 4 children and I have yet to figure out how to scrapbook or do baby books. It's yet, maybe it will happen. But what I do, and I've used this in my classroom, is I record them doing academic things, right? So I've always used screencasting because I want them to share their thinking. Kids are very adept at sorting out what you want, either as a mom or as a teacher, and they quickly want to get there and give that to you so they can move on, right? And so the struggle that I had was like, I don't want the right answer, right? I don't want the answer. I can say, hey, Google, what's 6 times 4? I want to know why you are thinking this way. I want to know what imagination you're using. And it was really hard for me as a parent to get my kids to speak that way, and as a teacher to get some of my kids. With my own kids, I noticed they watch YouTube videos. Have you guys noticed like kids watch YouTube videos of other kids opening boxes and then they're just talking, which I can't believe that this is a real thing. But these kids are narrating it. So I brought that into my classroom where kids would narrate themselves as if they're on a YouTube video. So I captured this moment with my last year, my 3rd grader, moving into some 4th grade multiplication. And he hadn't been direct instructed on this, right? He was going to have to pull on everything that he had, that prior knowledge to do this. So it just so happened that this is my child. We've started using this a lot at DreamBox to show growth mindset. My son, I can sign away his privacy as his mom. He is now demanding a YouTube channel for his Fortnite thing, which we have not come to agreement on. But if we could just take, it's about 2 minutes. It's actually 2 minutes and 44 seconds long. I'm going to share my screen. Take a look at that. And then I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on what are you seeing as educators and how can we invite this into our classroom? Let's see if I got this to go correctly. Sorry. And if I could, I might hit play on this. I'm going to hope that the audio comes through. So if you guys could give me a thumbs up, if the audio works, that'd be great. Okay. Are you hearing audio? No, we're not hearing audio.
You created 60 plus 7, and 60 plus 7 represent this expression. Try again. What is this? I will help you with this one. What is this? The array needs to be adjusted to 57 and 57. That is what? Oh, don't like the -3 things. Okay, it's 3,420 by 480 again. 3,200. 40 plus 9. Yay! Four thousand 760. 4,760. 620. 620. Yes, finally. $900. 899.
Goodness. Thank you for letting me have that mom moment. But aside from that, when you're watching that for growth mindset, I was amazed at what I was seeing when I was watching him, but I'm for what he was persevering through. But what did you guys notice? And what are you looking for in your classroom for a learner to demonstrate perseverance? Let's start with Chris. He's not on mute, so we'll go with Chris.
Right off the bat, your son's adorable, by the way. And it's a perfect representation of even for my middle schoolers. I still have that with them in the same way that he felt. Just looking at the emotions alone tells you everything. The frustration, the head nod, that proves right there. What did he do right afterwards? He got back up and said, "No, I'm gonna go right back into it." I think that what for educators, it's for us to kind of pick up on the, I know especially with everything going on, the social emotional part of learning, to see that frustration is actually a positive sign. That means that they're frustrated, they want to do it. That's great, rather than just click. I don't know, what does this button do? Yeah, you might have to do that to explore, but to see the emotion within that I think that's such a key aspect of, ensuring that growth mindset is occurring.
He felt that to his toes when he got that wrong, because he was so confident that he was going to get it right. He was doing his little dances, and he got it wrong. Yeah, he goes through his range of emotions there. Jessica.
I can say I loved that he continued to kind of mumble talk to himself. It was, I got to keep going. And I feel like that is an indication that he was not going to give that up, because I guess when they're little, very much they're like, if they're not going to try, they're not going to try. But he continued to stay in it. He had his eyes and he was in it. He was going to see it through, and he could get frustrated, but it didn't mean he was going to give up. So I liked the little self-talk, and I couldn't always hear exactly what he was saying, but he could. So that was some wonderful modeling that he has seen. I'm going to talk my way through this. I'm not going to give up. I thought that was great.
Shannon.
Yeah, I noticed, a strategy that we can be teaching our kids is that trial and error. And that trial and error is a way to get through some problems. If one way that we are thinking doesn't quite work, try it a different way. Always, and I think as educators, when we're noticing those kinds of emotions, because you can see it in his shoulders, you can see it in his face, in his head. You do this little dance with kids of, is it the right time to go over there? Or should I just step back and just kind of watch and see how this is playing out? And the more you know your kids, the more like for him, he was still making it through. He hadn't ever gotten to that point where he was like, I've given up, I'm not doing it anymore. But you do that little dance in your head with kids. Is this the right time to go over there and help them out, or help just give them some encouragement to keep going? Or am I going to watch them struggle a little bit and help them grow by letting them be, and he was able to grow through that problem, and he didn't need someone to come in. And I think as educators, that's our challenge, is when is the right time? When do they need that encouragement? When do they just need me to step back and do nothing and let them struggle, And so it just brought all of that together, just watching him go through that process.
And this is probably going to be our last question. We'll see how that time works on it. But I want to build on what you guys were sharing with mistakes, right? When we see mistakes, I think Chris is the one who said the shoulders being sunk down or the heads down, right? We see our learners doing that. What does that look like in our classroom? How do we support that? And to be frank, this was probably the toughest thing I had as a beginning educator, right? Because what I thought growth mindset meant was show me your work, because then I am going to move there. I have all the answers. I have all of the strategies. I'm going to look at your work and I am going to choose the most efficient way to get right back on the path where I wanted you to be, right? So when I was looking at growth mindset, I got it really confused at the beginning. I really thought that my job as a teacher was to see the mistake, correct it as quickly and as efficiently as possible so that we could move back on the path, instead of looking at the mistake and saying, ooh, how interesting. Let's explore this. Let's go this direction. That took me a while. Do you think that that's a valuable part in our classrooms? And how could you support mistakes with your kids in your classroom? Chris?
For me, with the middle schoolers, I myself will sometimes intentionally make mistakes to see if they are picking up on it. Now, it's definitely a different age level where I feel confident enough that they'll stop me, understand what needs to be done, and correct me. And when we're doing this, you can either do it as an educator, as an individual one-on-one level, or you can do this as a group learn. Obviously, I would personally recommend the one-on-one, but once again, as educators, it's all depending on your schedule and time. But as an example for the class, if I intentionally multiply something, make sure it's incorrect, I'll ask them, why is it incorrect? Have them follow back to show me. So to have them be the teacher sometimes is a great way to identify and make them feel okay that mistakes are going to happen. Mistakes are okay. Everybody does it. You're so, like, I believe Shannon, you said it earlier. Oh, I'm the teacher. Like, this is this perfect person. Of course they're going to get it right every single time. If you intentionally doing it without making it so obvious, then you'll see like, okay, all right, everybody makes mistakes. Maybe I can give it a shot too.
Great. Shannon?
My first response, which is my very intentional response that I've learned just in the past couple of years, is it's just saying to them, wow, you are growing your brain right now. This is amazing. And anytime that they kind of get those shoulders down and that they're feeling like they're struggling, they need to, I want them to understand that you have a chance right now that you are growing your brain. And to them, it's like they are doing something powerful right now, even though they're not feeling like it or it's hard, and I think helping them acknowledge this is hard. This isn't easy, and that's okay. It doesn't feel great, but we're going to get through it, and giving them just that positivity and just understanding they love hearing, like they light up. I'm growing my brain right now. And then when I'll go through different problems with kids and we'll go through and how many of you got that answer? Okay, now who wants to grow their brain right now by sharing an answer that wasn't the same? And walk us through what you were thinking and let's grow our brains together. It gives them that kind of encouragement and power to go, okay, this is okay and it's okay. Sorry. But it just gives them that encouragement, like this is okay. And oh, I could teach other people and it would grow their brain too. So, that's what we do in our class.
That's great. Jessica?
So I do a lot of listening. So if I see a student who has a misconception and they may have made a mistake, I like to listen, like, tell me more about that. Oh, tell me what you did here. And I like to always invite in up here. So I could say, hey, come on over here. Listen to what we were coming up with and tell me if you agree or disagree. And so I like to have them talk to each other because I think sometimes kids are going to learn so much better from the person sitting next to them than they will from me. And so fostering a community of learners is a big deal. And then I can say, you guys, the way you worked together and you got through this was really amazing. And who might really love to hear this? The rest of your class. And so I like to build the community in the room so that it becomes fine when we make mistakes, because they're going to happen. And then I do, not always, sometimes I like to choose, someone to share who's got some really amazing strategies, but sometimes I like to have kids share who struggled at the beginning, maybe made some mistakes, and how together we came out of it because we're a team and we're going to get through this together. So I think there's power in allowing them to talk to each other and work through things together, and then sharing those mistakes because they're going to happen. And it's just going to be it's going to be part of our classroom community that we're going to make mistakes, and it's going to be all right.
Oh my goodness. You guys, I want to be a part of all of your classrooms. I want to work at the school with you. You're incredible educators, and you've shared some amazing strategies and really actionable things that anyone could take forward and use. I want to give you an opportunity now, though, in case you want to throw out your Twitter handle or your blog that you have, so that other people can come and join and learn along with you, and give you the opportunity to say something that I didn't ask. Maybe throw out something you wish I would have asked or you'd like to leave our listeners with. Shannon, would you like to go first? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. Okay.
I'm looking at my Twitter handle. I don't even remember it. Is that bad? Go on to Chris. I'm sure he has it all prepared. I'll be with you in a sec.
Okay, I didn't. It's just in case you want to, Chris.
I actually, I swear, same exact issue. I have a Twitter. I don't remember my password, even my username. But I'll be more than happy. I'll type into the chat my email if anybody would like any suggestions past this, or just would like to communicate and just discuss, have a dialogue. You can go even further. I'm seeing that there's some amazing comments here in our chat box that are definitely of great use.
Yeah, some amazing community here. And it really, you guys have been so giving and so wonderful today. Just wondering if other people want to continue that conversation with you. Oh, excuse me. Jessica, you have to come out here now with your TikTok, right? We all know Jessica has a TikTok with her kindergartners. I don't even know how to use TikTok. Jessica, was there something that you wanted to add?
So I as well have a Twitter. I don't know what it is, but I do know there are wonderful resources on Twitter to access. So just explore, there's wonderful things out there. And I'm going to find that Twitter handle that I have. But also, I just wanted to say, I feel like this speaks so much because I know across the nation right now, our field is just every single day having to decide to get up and go to work and keep trying. And I think that there's power in things like this because while we are all swamped with things to do and emails to send and things to look at and planning for next week, people still are making the choice to come and to continue learning and continue the conversation. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And so I hope y'all do these again. So that's all I had to say.
Good. That was a beautiful wrap up. Go ahead, Shannon.
I was just going to say, just the one thing that I think about when I think about growth mindset is how important it is to build that community in your classroom and how important it is to share of yourself with kids and make those connections with them. The things that you do end up being so much easier when you have that relationship with your students, and all of this growth mindset becomes powerful when they feel that you care and that you want to be a part of their lives. And so I just think about, how important that community is in building growth mindset for kids.
Oh, and we want to continue this conversation also at DreamBox. So we're going to invite everyone to follow that hashtag #DareToDreamBox. And we're going to wrap up these amazing educators in there somehow. Maybe when they find their Twitter handles, they can send it to us. I don't know. You'll just be getting emails from us. But you've given us so many resources and ideas. And now, especially, it was important before that we really start understanding growth mindset and really starting providing the opportunity, not only for learners, but ourselves as educators and our families and our parents and anyone supporting learners now. But it's big. It's a big ask. It's a big lift. So I just really want to thank you guys for coming and sharing what growth mindset journey has looked like for you, what it's been in your classroom, and how it's a continuous journey. We're never totally done with it. We're all looking to each other, and we're all growing our community, and we're all striving towards doing better, just a little bit better that next day. We're not there yet. And with that, I want to wrap up our webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Please understand that everyone who registered, you will receive a recording, and we are going to develop a list of resources of what these people have so kindly shared with us. And if you want further information, feel free to email us at DreamBox all the time, because we do want to bring more conversations like this to you and amplify those amazing voices and those amazing things that teachers are doing in their classrooms every single day. So thank you. Thank you for taking time to watch us, and thank you for joining us, Jessica, Shannon, and Christopher. Thank you.